pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Likewise, I want to make sure this week that our moment of silence is for Sergeant Tony Minio and Officer Justin Martin, who died in the line of duty as police officers who were slain in the Des Moines and Urbandale area. And if you would join me in a moment of silence for them and for their families. Thank you very much. Welcome to tonight's meeting. The first item on our agenda relates to citizen concerns. If there are any concerned citizens who would like to approach the board, concerns no, please do so at this time. Hearing none, we'll move to item 3, approval of the agenda dated November 8, 2016.
Move it. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 4, approval of the minutes of the November 1st, 2016 meeting.
Move it.
Second. There's a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the minutes are approved 5-0. Item 5 is discussion and approval of the claims.
Move it.
Second, is there discussion on the claims? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the claims are approved 5-0. Item 6, Board Administration, under Karen James. Item 6A is approval of a resolution approving a petition for suspension of taxes through the redemption process for an individual with the initials DC.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 6B is the approval of a lifting of a tax suspension for an individual with the initials DB.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. We are going to move down to item 8 with our county treasurer, Mike Clayton, and this is approval of a resolution for a tax abatement for CU, an individual with the initial CU.
Move it.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 9, Human Resources with Ed Gilliland, and item 9A is the approval of the memorandum of personnel transaction.
Move it. Second.
A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 9B is to authorize the chairman to sign a request to deauthorize county position.
Move it. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 9C is to authorize the chairman to sign the authorization to initiate the hiring process.
Move it.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Ed, very nice job. Thank you very much. We are now to a set time at 4:35 p.m. This is under Board Administration, Heather Satterwhite. And this is a public hearing and sale of property parcel number 001725. That property is also known as 609 West 1st Street. And so that you know this process right now, we are in a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against the sale of this property.
Move to close public hearing.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. And the public hearing is closed on a vote of 5-0 now. Is there anyone who would like to bid on the sale of 609 West First Street? Come forward, sir, if you state your name and address.
Jose Crispin,
Jose Crispin, and your address, sir?
602 First West First Street, Sioux City, Iowa.
Okay. And your bid, sir? What would you like to bid on this property? Would you like to bid the minimum bid, which is $177? Anyone else like to bid?
Hearing none, I move that we sell the property to Jose Crispin for $177.
And there's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. And the property is sold to you, sir, on a vote of 5-0. So Ms. Satterwhite will get you taken care of back there. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night. Having dispensed with items 1 through 9, we are now to item 10. Secondary roads, our county engineer, Mark Nara. And item 10A is consideration of a permit for use of the county right-of-way for an underground utility.
Move it.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 10B is consideration of approval of a road vacation resolution to close a portion of 340th Street on the Woodbury-Monona County line.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 10C is consideration of approval of a contract for project number FM C097-12655-97 HMA resurfacing on Correctionville Road and 150th Street.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 11, Building Services, our Director Kenny Schmitz, and this is approval to seek project bids for additional courthouse, courtrooms, windows, and structural repairs. Kenny, do you want to give us?
I would. As you all know, we completed a structural building facade and window repair in courtroom 203 earlier this year. During that period, we also evaluated the other courtrooms for similar structure movement and found similar deterioration in the other courtrooms, courtroom 201, 207, 209, and the judges' chambers. We asked CMBA architects while we were doing the courtroom 203 repairs to draft specifications and requirements that would be necessary to bid work to complete any of the other courtrooms. That work would go through a normal bid process. As you know, courtroom 203 was an emergency process that did not follow the actual normal guidelines of a bid process. This would let bids for those specifications. And Terry Glade with CMBA Architects is here. I'd like him to come up if he would and just say a few words and answer questions that you might have related to these.
Thank you. Terry Glade, Cannon Moss Brigger. The documents now basically reflect what the work that was done in courtroom 203, and we've got all the front end portions of the specifications that will allow us to put this out to bid now for the remaining 3 courtrooms whenever the funds allow that to move forward. So I guess, any questions you might have on those?
Do you feel like it'll be a more seamless process now that you've walked through completing one of the courtrooms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess we don't expect to find any more surprises. There always may be, but we expect that the others are constructed the same way as 203, and so that the majority of the issues should be addressed in the documents.
Let's hope.
And this is a question, maybe Dennis, to you, Terry, or Kenny. do we know what the total project cost of that first courtroom was? And I know you and I talked about how these things aren't quickly closed out as far as billing and so on, but do we have what that is and what the 2017 CIP is for these other ones and kind of what we're doing along those lines?
Our estimated cost for that courtroom 203 is $240,000 total. The additional courtrooms, we believe there's going to be some savings attributed with those. Additionally, when we did 203, we purchased additional marble, so there won't be, we shouldn't be able to assume so many costs in the marbling. So that should reduce that cost. Also, we may be able to, depending on how the bids come in, we maybe have some cost savings on the zinc or the leading that's used in the stained glass windows. I don't know, I could only estimate what the costs would be. We do have $450,000, I believe, Dennis, in the 2017 CIP for this.
And since you're going to put it out for bid, that's about all we should say, huh?
Denny, is that money in the 2017-18 or 16-17?
That's 16-17, where Kenny and I and the staff and Shane are meeting every first Monday of every month now, because we have a lot of projects that are coming up, a few new ones. We're reallocating 16 money we have to spend by June 30th. So we're in the process of working through that with Kenny.
That
So,
shouldn't
yes,
be a
money-
problem, no, should it?
What?
That shouldn't be a problem.
Well,
spending
it
that
shouldn't be a
money.
problem. We just want to make sure that when we've got projects split into 2 years, they have to add all together to make sure we're under 1.2, which we're safe on all of them except the jail. We don't know that yet. But we're trying to spend the money first out of 16, then we start plowing into the 17. So that's what we're working on now and we're getting real close to it. There's some monies that we have to hold back, such as in our cash balances, 16 would be $250,000 for the auditor. For voting machines, that we can carry forward. But otherwise, we're spending the 16 money first before we spend 17. But we're making sure that the total projects, as we space them into 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, are all added together as one project.
I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to tell me. I was going to talk to you about this offline, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you. How feasible would it be with all these CIP projects to be tracking kind of a spreadsheet that any supervisor could look at in real time, so to speak, to see this project we ended up deciding that we are not doing, or the board said we were going to bypass in 16, which freed up this money for this other project, and this is how much of it's been expended.
Yep, and that's a good point, and that's exactly what we're doing. I actually have 2 books, a 16-year, a 17-year, and eventually I'll have an 18-year. It lists every different project, where we're at in that project, what we spent, what we have left over, projects that aren't gonna be done. Those are all in 2 books. They're in our office, and they actually got a kind of a duplicate set. So we're each checking each other each month to make sure we do get the expenditures to the right projects and where we're at with those projects and which ones are not being done. And there's a few that aren't gonna be done, where Kenny's gonna come back to the board and ask for reallocation of funds from this area to these areas.
Okay.
We're just, the ones we aren't doing, we're trying to cover with new projects to get those covered without borrowing extra money.
Right. Okay.
So we are doing that.
So we'd have to come and get your book to look at it then, or
At
what?
one point, we're looking at a program, and that hasn't been developed yet. I've talked with John Malloy upstairs a little bit, and this is about a month or 2 ago, where somehow we can put it on the computer, so when we update ours, it'll automatically update yours also. We are trying to work on that. It may be a small cost for that program, but we are working on it. I think, to be honest with you, I think with Matthew kind of thought of this, I think it's like a notebook. And there's a program we can get where it is updated. As soon as we update it, you'll see the update right away.
It's like OneNote.
OneNote, yes. Yes, I couldn't think of what it was.
Is that easier than Excel or something? I mean, do you have?
The beauty of it is if he changes something, he doesn't have to resend it and say, hey, I just updated it. You could look at the same time. It's like a Google Doc that anyone could edit. But if we just had it among us, Dennis changed something, you could see it without having to save and send a new attachment. And is this the most recent version? It's always live, so to speak. So that's
So is it like a web page then, or what?
almost, but it's your computer constantly syncs and updates whenever you open it. If Dennis changed something, you could actually see him changing it, even though he was over there without.
You'd have to be on the network to see it?
Yeah, you have to be networked so that your computer can sync.
So at home, you wouldn't be able to?
You could, as long as you had network access and your computer is sort of syncing, and in other words, kind of downloading his update, so to speak. But it's supposed to work continuously, so you don't have to get into the save, and he's going to send, and he's at 15 versions, and
Sort of like old Dropbox and Word documents?
Right.
kind of,
That
yeah.
you sort too.
Yeah, it'll be a pretty neat thing if we pull it off, because you got your iPads, you'll have access to right away.
Larry said he'd like it on
Larry,
paper.
On paper, I can understand it.
I get accused of killing trees, so I'm trying not to kill as many trees. I'm
Although,
kind of updating my
This
old-fashioned way.
ensures the trees that are killed present the information most accurately.
Okay, well, I think that would help because we have so many
Yeah.
CIP projects
Yeah,
going.
we got, this year, we have 51 projects. Next year, we haven't gone through that yet, we'll probably have another 20, 25 more. Plus, we have the last year's 2 projects going on. So there's multiple projects going, that's why I talked to Kenny, we decided we gotta meet every month, know exactly where we're at.
I would move on the approval to seek project bids.
I'll second that. And my last question is, how long do you anticipate these coming back once the project bid letting process? I mean, are we looking at 1 week, 1 month, 3 months?
Typically, it's about a month
Okay.
by the time you from when you put the drawings out to when you take bids.
Okay.
Kind of, you got to get the public notices all timed out in there too.
Okay. All right, very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Thank you both very much for your work. Item 12, Chairman's Report. Had the annual fall safety training, November 3rd, and was able to give some opening comments. Just want to say that I think it was a great thing that Ed Gilliland and Mark Nara and Rick Schneider helped to put on for their folks, including presentations on deferred compensation, hostile work environment, safety, slips and falls, and defensive driving, and just assured them on behalf of the board that we appreciate all that they do. And the biggest thing with safety is, of course, we can replace equipment, but we can't replace people, and their families would probably echo the same. So no matter how much work needs to get done, safety is always first. Story of street medicine presentation. There's really a neat presentation that was given, that was hosted by Mercy Medical, and talked about Dr. Jim Withers presented, and just wanted to give you a couple of minutes on this if you don't mind. Much of it was bringing street medicine to those who are homeless and are indigent, and it seemed to come out of this, go to the people and the golden rule, and what I saw is the compassion of Christ in touching lives. And Dr. Withers grew up, it was medical mission trips to Guatemala and Belize where his parents helped to serve, and talked about going out to those who were disillusioned with life in the healthcare system. And I just thought I'd share a couple of things. He said the loss of health is the #1 reason for losing shelter. And oftentimes it's mental health problems and domestic violence are sort of the center of almost all of these different things. So there's real health problems, including mental health, and often sexual or domestic violence. And went out on his own initiative and philanthropy and served people and gave them medical care, and really came back to the heart of the mission of those like St. Luke's and the nuns that started the hospital that he worked in. And we have approximately 300 homeless here. The Gospel and Warming Shelter do great jobs in helping. I just thought it was a great presentation and very touching and poignant. coming out of that, I think a lot of people looked and said, okay, so what next, or what are the steps, or how do we do something? And he said that he would be willing to help the medical community here stand up such a program, and oftentimes utilizes students who are in medical programs, because it's really the most profound learning experience, and how to touch those who aren't able to get medical care on their own or disillusioned with the system. So I'd share that. 2016 COPS hiring. If you remember this program that we looked for in grant funding, they reached out to who they called Mayor Wick. And so I don't know if that helps our chances or hurts them, but Mayor Wick was told that we are still in line potentially for this funding, and his inquiry was based on the fact that he had not heard anything back, but the answer is not no. It's they're still going through the process. So I thought that was somewhat good news to know. D is policy concerning quality assurance and bidding. Have appreciated Abby has given us some guidance on, this is in response to the Northwest Iowa building trades, that maybe it would be best to take some of those things that we would want to integrate in finding the most responsible bidder into our current documents. There are some added insurance requirements that we may want to take a second look at as far as what that adds and costs. And then taking some input from Kenny on the worry about eliminating some single business owners and whether bid bonds are really necessary on all smaller projects, and that can sort of elongate the process. So we're going to meet together, and what I'd like to do is look at some of those things that would be good to incorporate, and some of those things that staff have some real heartburn over, maybe not bring forward, and then anybody could amend or give input based on that in a board meeting. So that's where that's at.
Has the gentleman that approached the board last week been updated?
He has been updated with that we're looking at it and that we're meeting. Okay. And then I told him after getting some of those things together on what I would feel comfortable bringing forward the board, unless somebody else would like to, then that would be the next step, and he'd be notified of when that would be. So. And then item E, initial inquiry concerning purchasing. Not Mayor Wick, but Todd Wick. Let me know that there's some concerns about the company that we've done some purchasing through in the pricing, and that they discovered that the online price was in some circumstances lower than the price that we've been being charged. And we were supposed to be getting discounted rates and so on. And so they discovered that it's been going on for some time within their department. So we're investigating to what degree that's happened in other departments. And then my goal will be to look at what we think the county may be owed, so to speak, and work with that company in doing our due diligence, because it just doesn't seem right.
It's a company, not a state arm.
Right. So this is one source that we're looking at, and so I'm hoping that we can just work on a good, polite, professional way to get what is due. But if not, we will utilize other means and keep you updated as to that. I'm going to have to send you Supervisor Clausen to strong-arm them, but I know you're available. The only other thing that I wanted to update you on is spent about an hour and a half with Kenny and Renee on Energy Cap. Savings seem to be over and above expectations on the LED project, at least its contribution to our electrical savings, which are great. We're working through some Energy Cap issues and just worked on some, I'd call it either training or cleaning up of data, and so we'll continue to get that in a way that we can eventually get reports out to people. So appreciate all the work that Renee's doing in coordination with you, and we're going to get a better streamlined process and have a meeting on that tomorrow. So That's all I have. Item 13 is reports on committee meetings.
Had a couple of gross Siouxland met last Wednesday. CF is down to about 2,400, and the indication was they were dropping 100 to 200 a week from now on. It's mostly folks to fix the wrinkles in the project to get it up and running. It will start up in the fourth quarter. That's all they will say. And AGP, their soy oil plant should be up and running by February, and the diesel plant, biodiesel, by July. They are going full steam ahead on that. All the roads are up and running, and everybody's happy. And then Friday I went to a security meeting that was a little glum after the events in Des Moines. They're working forward with all the security they can muster.
Is that gross Siouxland committee going to keep meeting? Is there a report to keep going?
There are some who would like to continue it and some who would like to end it. There's arguments both ways. With Tramp Seaboard coming on, we're still going to have issues, even though they're mostly Sioux cities, but that will spill over. And there's a lot of good exchange of information between the folks that are there. So I think it will probably continue, but maybe not as often.
Well, they're sending out postcards this week to find out what how many people want to continue it, and then they move on from there.
I had Siouxland District Health, and just the two things. They wanted to increase septic fees and inspections for them by $50 in order to cover costs. That hasn't been done since 2004. Ended up voting as a board to increase them by $25 rather than the 50. We thought the 50 was a little steep, and wanted to be a little more incremental, though we know that they have to cover their costs. The other thing was the over-prescribing of antibiotics. There's a lot of bacteria in your system that's good bacteria, and it wipes out, and if they are too generalized in their prescription, it can wipe out all the healthy bacteria, and that really, there's not enough probiotic yogurt to help you at that point. So it just, they were wanting to educate medically on doing that, and from a disease prevention sort of role. Anything else? Item 14 is citizen concerns. Item 15, board concerns and comments. I've got one. I just want to say on behalf of the county, thank you to the auditor's office. I know you're not, Pat, if you can hear me somewhere up there, and Michelle and Steve. It takes a lot of work, which we see, holding elections part and parcel of democracy, and for those who are running, I wish you the absolute best. I know it takes a lot to put a name on a ballot and to do all that you do. So,
Thank you.
So with that, any other final words?
Did an excellent job.
Thank you.
You better write that down.
I will add it to your tally. And with that, we will adjourn.
What a mess, Larry.